Illinois. The gentleman from Indiana is now recognized, Mr. Stutzman, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here. Frankly, I apologize for the fact that you're getting a lot of accusations thrown at you, and you haven't had much chance to respond to some of them, and that are fair questions that I know that you have good answers for. So with respect to the individuals originally referenced by Ranking Member Waters, who may have had access to certain BFS systems, and in response to Mr. Caston, do you want to add any additional information on that matter?
I would say that that is in litigation, and I never authorized access.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say thank you for your service and for your willingness to come serve in Washington, D.C. at a critical time, and the fact that you heeded President Trump's call, and it's refreshing, honestly. You know, we see a lot of ups and downs. You know, things are happening around the world, but here at home, there's a reset that's happening, and that does create some volatility. But I'll tell you what, there's a lot of good news that I think the other side is missing, and I found it ironic that this chart was handed out earlier. And of course, you know, it tries to show that all the blame is on the Republican presidents over the past century or so. But the one that really caught
Congressman, if I may interrupt, as a former finance professor, that chart we get an F.
Well, I agree, and you know, it's interesting that this big drop off right here after President Clinton. I live in one of the heaviest manufacturing districts in the country, and you know, I know that businesses don't turn on a dime that quickly, but that was because of different trade policies. Something happened during the President Clinton era that caused a lot of jobs to leave. And that's what President Trump and you are trying to fix. Is that correct?
I think that thing was called NAFTA, sir.
Exactly. Well, thank you for doing that, because we saw jobs growing up in Northeast Indiana in the auto industry and agriculture, manufacturing, just continue to have this slow decline. And manufacturing is critical to a nation, and manufacturing has built America. And we've seen jobs leave because of bad policies over years. But because of President Trump and because of you, sir, we're now seeing headlines that say Rolls-Royce planning to shift production to the United States to avoid Trump's tariffs. We see headlines saying Johnson & Johnson to invest over $55 billion in U.S. in the next 4 years. Even in my district, GM has announced that they're increasing truck production. I know, coming from a manufacturing family, that we're seeing opportunities. Is it going to happen overnight? Absolutely not. But it's at least giving us the opportunity to look forward and say there's an opportunity, because you all are resetting the table to look out for America first. And so I want to say thank you. And if you don't, and if I've heard you say this before, that President Trump has tasked you with reducing debt and deficits as well as keeping the economy strong, that's a huge task, but it's one that has to happen. And I appreciate what you've been doing, because a debt crisis would just flat out limit us to any sort of recovery. It'd be very difficult. I want to ask you real quick about the Federal Reserve's dual mandate. Generally speaking, should the Federal Reserve focus more on fighting inflation or providing maximum employment? And what should the Fed focus on if the economy enters stagflation?
Sir, I would just comment on monetary policy in general rather than the Federal Reserve. I think the two are inexorably linked. And as we saw during the terrible inflation during the Biden years, that employment picked up, but that was a slingshot effect. As we came into post-COVID recovery, financed by debt-fueled government spending, and we are trying to end that. So the Federal Reserve should focus on both, and it's at different times. But look, keeping inflation down, President Trump won because of, I believe, because real wages for working Americans dropped.
No, that's absolutely right. And we saw the cost of living go up. The last 4 years have been the hardest on Americans due to the former administration's policies. And I know that there's a huge recovery, and people are still trying to recover and are hopeful and optimistic. And my time's about to expire, but I just wish you the best, and I want to say thank you. And working together here in this committee, there's plenty of places to work together and try to get us back on track rather than pointing fingers. So,
Gentleman's time has expired. We now recognize the gentlewoman from Massachusetts, Ms. Presley, for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Secretary Bessent, you have heard from